Chrono Odyssey recently announced they will be published by Kakaogames. This is the same publisher behind games like Alien, originally titled Ascent Infinite, if I remember. It was also a former publisher for blackdesertonline and a game called Guardian Tales, to name a few. Now, some are extremely skeptical, as they should be, as the publisher, they don't really have that good of a track record in the games they publish. However, I have to ask, to play devil advocate, how much of those problems and issues with those games are due to the publishers and not the game self-managing itself? Because I'm not seeing an unanimous discourse in the community that Kakaogames are largely responsible for the downfall or the mismanagement of the games they backed up. So I can't just come to a decisive conclusion that the game is doomed or will fail because of the publisher alone. Now, I understand the concerns because this is a Korean game, it's a very flashy Asian action MMO, and we all know how they usually end up. However, just based on the information that we have alone, I could be wrong, you could be right, only time will tell. With that being said, I can ensure that if this game does turn out to be a pay-to-win cash grab or some features get announced that will compromise the state of the game, then I will be sure to put a giant coffin on this dev team and their game to rest. But until then, let's give it a teeny tiny bit of hope that it will deliver. But for now, I want to keep somewhat of an open mind, and I like to dive into what the game really is, what its potentials are, some implications, and its concepts. If you're not aware, Chrono Odyssey is being developed as an open world action MMORPG using Unreal Engine 5 by Chrono Studio, which is a South Korean development team. The game will be available for PS5, Xbox, and PC via Steam. It will also be buy to play on release. Based on the footages we have of some of the cinematic gameplay, which may or may not be how the game actually played out on release, a lot of these showcases with no real UI or gameplay, I say you can pretty much take them with a grain of salt, but from the looks of it and based on the description of the game, it seems to be an action combat system, as it seems to emphasize aiming and dodging quite a bit. This is expected for an action MMO, and I'm glad it's focused on the system, as the only alternative that I can think of would be the hybrid combat system. As for tap targeting, I don't really see any place for tap targeting going forward, and there shouldn't be, to be honest. I think tap targeting should have been under the rug 10 years ago if you ask me. I think it's safe to say at the very least you'll have a fun combat experience if it runs well, of course. The studio announced that there will be 6 classes with 18 weapons, so I'm assuming that each class will be proficient in certain weapons, or certain weapons will be locked to each specific class. However, the main concept of Odyssey, which is time manipulation or controlling time, will be available to all classes. So let's talk about that. Based on the game official page, it looks like your character will be in possession of an item called Chrono Odyssey, which will allow you to influence space-time. From the descriptions, now it states the artifact has lost much of its original strength, so obviously this means that this whole time controlling ability won't be too overpowered or broken, or it will have limitations, or at the very least it will be balanced. So we can see that you can use it to temporarily stop time for a moment within a certain radius from this gameplay trailer. While this sounds cool as a concept, I'm curious as to how they plan to balance it for tougher enemies and PvP. Some ways I can think of that I've seen is that a higher tier enemy will either be completely resistant to it, or they'll only be slightly slowed down. As for PvP, I can also see some buffs giving you immunity against time freezing, or perhaps a stun break would be able to get you out of it. In addition, the time ability would also have a considerable cooldowns as well. Another showcase of the time manipulation we see is that a character is rewinding time to where they immediately went back to their initial location from which they jumped right into a scene of battle. It seems as though the skill would work much like many teleportation or time distortion ability in some games. Basically, you use the skill once to mark your current position and then move away from that position, and you have about, let's say, a duration of 10 to 30 seconds as an example to use that skill again to return to your original position by clicking the skill again. Otherwise, the skill would either automatically pour you back to that original position, or you stay in your current location, then the skill would go on cooldowns. These aren't really new concepts by any means, so I'm confident you can realistically expect these demonstrations to reflect the actual skills at the very least. Another feature of this time concept is having different data layers within the game that allows it to transition the environment or setting from present to past or future and vice versa. This could heavily impact performance and optimization. I can already see that if it's not done properly, as there are a lot of factors that goes into this kind of features that could make the gameplay really rough. And to be honest, I'm not sure if it's necessary to put this kind of feature in the game. I understand time is a big theme of this game, but you necessarily don't need something of this scale. Although one way I can think of is that you could limit this inside of a single player instance that focuses on the main story rather than it being like an open world thing to avoid any like potential issues. That's about as much we can contextualize, it seems, based on the announcements and informations we have available. With that being said, leave your thoughts about the game in the comment section below. We'll have to wait for more infos to come out, but until then, let's keep an open eye. Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing, commenting, or leaving a like, and I will see you very soon.